The last time I saw my wife before she disappeared, she was smiling. That's the part that still bothers me. Not the screaming later, not the lies, not even the moment I stood in my own doorway and told her to get out of my life. No, it was that smile. Soft, calm, almost guilty, like she already knew something I didn't. Her birthday was supposed to be simple that year. She had turned 32 and honestly, life had finally started feeling stable again. My name is Daniel Harper. I'm 35 years old, and at the time, I thought I had a marriage most people would envy. We lived in Portland in a small 2-story house with white siding and a crooked mailbox I kept promising to fix. My wife, Emily, worked as a graphic designer from home. I managed operations for a shipping company downtown. Nothing glamorous. Just normal life. But normal life can hide dangerous secrets. I spent 2 weeks planning her birthday dinner. 2 weeks. I reserved a private table at the restaurant where we had our first date. I ordered her favorite cake from a bakery 30 minutes away. I even bought a silver necklace with a tiny moon pendant because she once told me she loved the moon when she was a little girl. I remembered everything. At least I thought I did. That morning, Emily looked distracted. She kept checking her phone. Every few minutes, buzz, glance, type, lock screen. I noticed it during breakfast. "You expecting someone?" I asked casually. She jumped slightly. "What? Your phone. You keep looking at it." "Oh, no, just work stuff." She smiled too quickly. That should have been my first warning, but when you love someone long enough, you stop questioning small things. You explain them away. You protect the person in your mind instead of seeing the person in front of you. Around 6 that evening, I got home carrying flowers and the cake box. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Emily? No answer. I checked upstairs. Bathroom empty. Bedroom empty. Closet door slightly open. Then I noticed something strange. Her red overnight bag was gone. I called her immediately. Straight to voicemail, I texted. No response. At first, I honestly thought maybe she went out with friends. Maybe they planned some surprise. But an hour passed. Then 2. By midnight, my stomach felt heavy. You know that feeling when your body realizes something before your brain accepts it? That. I called her sister. "No, she's not here," Rachel said. "You sure?" "Yes. Dan, is everything okay?" I don't know. And that was the truth. I didn't know. I sat alone at the dining table, staring at the untouched birthday cake, candles still inside the package, flowers slowly falling apart beside me, and for the first time in years, I felt afraid of my own marriage. At around 2:30 in the morning, I heard a car pull into the driveway. I rushed to the window, a black SUV. Not hers. My chest tightened. Then I saw her. Emily stepped out slowly, and a man was sitting in the driver's seat. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I saw her lean toward the window before closing the door, like they were sharing one last sentence, one last secret. Then the SUV drove away. I opened the front door before she could even reach it. She froze, and the second I looked at her face, I knew. Something had changed. Something terrible. "Where were you?" I asked. She looked exhausted, her makeup smudged, hair messy. "I can explain. That sentence, those 4 words destroy more marriages than people realize." I asked where you were. Emily swallowed hard. "Dan, please don't yell." "I'm not yelling." I stepped aside. "Come inside." She walked in carefully like she was entering a stranger's house. Then she saw the table, the cake, the flowers, the necklace box, and suddenly she started crying. Not loud, not dramatic. Quiet crying. The kind that sounds real. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For what?" She couldn't answer. That scared me even more. Then she finally said the sentence that changed my life forever. "I went to see someone." My hands went cold. "A man?" She looked down, and silence told me everything. There are moments in life when your entire world changes shape. Not loudly, quietly, like glass cracking under pressure. You don't notice the full damage immediately. But once it starts, nothing looks the same again. I stood there staring at my wife while my brain tried desperately to rearrange reality into something less painful. Maybe it was work. Maybe it was family. Maybe there was some explanation that didn't end with my marriage collapsing in the kitchen at 3 in the morning. But deep down, I already knew. You disappeared on your birthday, I said slowly. You ignored every call. Then another man drops you off at our house at 2:30 in the morning. Emily wiped her face. It's not what you think. People always say that, and somehow it always ends up being exactly what you think. Then tell me what it is. She sat down carefully at the table. I didn't mean for this to happen. That sentence hit me harder than yelling would have because guilt has a sound, and hers sounded real. I stayed standing, partly because I was angry, partly because I was afraid that if I sat down, I'd completely fall apart. How long? I asked. Emily closed her eyes. Dan, how long? 3 months. 3 months. 90 days. An entire secret relationship happening while I sat beside her every night asking how her day was. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, because sometimes pain overloads the brain. 3 months, I repeated. She nodded. I started pacing the kitchen. Every memory suddenly felt fake. Movie nights, Sunday breakfasts, the way she kissed me goodbye every morning. Was any of it real, or had I been living beside a stranger wearing my wife's face? Who is he? Emily hesitated. And that hesitation hurt almost as much as the affair itself. His name is Marcus. Marcus. A random name, a random man, some stranger somehow becoming more important than 11 years together. How did you meet him? At a design conference. Of course. I didn't plan this. You planned enough to disappear for an entire night. She flinched. Good. At that moment, I wanted her to feel at least one piece of what I was feeling. You know what the worst part is? I asked. She stayed silent. I was worried you were dead. That broke her composure instantly. She covered her mouth. Dan. No. Don't. I pointed toward the table. I bought you a necklace today. Tears streamed down her face. I know. No, you don't know. Because if you knew, you wouldn't have done this. The room felt smaller by the second. My chest hurt, my head hurt, and somehow she still had the nerve to look heartbroken too. That's the strange thing about betrayal. The guilty person still cries. The guilty person still says they're confused, like their pain deserves equal space in the disaster they created. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. Then why did you? She had no answer. And honestly, that made me angrier. Because I wanted logic. I wanted some explanation strong enough to justify destroying a marriage. But betrayal usually isn't logical. It's selfish, that's all. Eventually, I asked the question I'd been avoiding. Do you love him? The silence after that question felt endless. Emily looked down at her hands, and that tiny movement told me everything before she even spoke. I don't know. That was it. That was the moment something inside me shut down, not exploded, not shattered, just switched off. Because if your wife of 11 years suddenly doesn't know whether she loves another man more than you, the marriage is already dying. I walked upstairs. She followed me. Dan, please. I opened the closet, grabbed her suitcase, and placed it on the bed. Her face went pale. What are you doing? You can stay with Marcus. No. Yes. My voice came out colder than I expected. You made your choice. I was confused. You vanished overnight with another man. I came back. That sentence almost made me lose control. You came back because you weren't sure, I snapped. Emily started crying harder. You don't understand. Then explain it. She shook her head, and that's when I realized something terrifying. She wasn't fighting for us. Not really. She was fighting her guilt. There's a difference. One fights to save the marriage. The other fights to feel less horrible about destroying it, and suddenly I could see which one this was. I pointed toward the suitcase. Pack your things. Dan. Pack your things. For a moment, I thought she might refuse. But then she slowly opened drawers, started folding clothes, and every sound in that room felt unbearable. Zippers, hangers, drawer handles, 11 years reduced to luggage noises. At sunrise, she stood near the front door holding her suitcase, eyes red, voice shaking. I never stopped loving you. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said the hardest sentence of my life. But you stopped respecting me. And that mattered more. I opened the door. She waited, like she expected me to change my mind. I didn't. Finally, she walked out. And when the door closed behind her, the silence felt endless. People think heartbreak happens in one dramatic moment. It doesn't. It happens in waves, tiny, brutal waves. The first morning after Emily left, I woke up reaching across the bed for her. That hurt. Then I walked into the bathroom and saw her toothbrush still beside mine. That hurt, too. Then I opened the fridge. Her favorite iced coffee was still there, half full, like she might walk downstairs any second. And somehow that hurt the most. Because betrayal leaves ghosts everywhere. The house became unbearable. Every corner reminded me of her, the couch where we watched movies, the backyard where she planted flowers, the hallway where she danced badly whenever old music played. I started staying late at work just to avoid going home. And when I finally did go home, I drank too much and stared at the ceiling until sunrise. For 3 weeks, Emily texted constantly. I'm sorry. Please talk to me. Can we meet? I made a mistake. I ignored all of it, mostly because I knew if I heard her voice, I might forgive her before I was ready. And forgiveness without accountability becomes permission. One Friday evening, my best friend Ryan forced his way into my house carrying takeout and beer. You look terrible, he said immediately. Good to see you too. No, seriously, man. You look like a haunted history teacher. I laughed for the first time in weeks. Ryan sat down across from me. So, you finally gonna tell me everything? And I did. Every ugly detail. The disappearing, the SUV, Marcus, the suitcase. Ryan listened quietly. Then he leaned back and sighed. She doesn't deserve you. I hated hearing that. Because even after everything, part of me still loved her. That's the cruel thing about betrayal. Love doesn't vanish immediately. Sometimes it stays long after trust dies. You know what's messing me up? I admitted. What? I keep wondering if I missed signs. Ryan nodded slowly. You probably did. Thanks. No, listen. Everybody misses signs when they love somebody. That's normal. I stared down at my drink. She looked me in the eyes every day. Cheaters usually do. That word hit hard. Cheater. I still hadn't fully attached that label to Emily in my head. Maybe because labeling it made it real. Ryan suddenly frowned. Wait. What? You said she disappeared specifically on her birthday? Yeah. That's weird. How? Most people sneaking around try to avoid suspicious timing. I shrugged. She said she was confused. Ryan looked unconvinced, but he dropped it. A few days later, I finally checked our shared credit card account, and that's when things got stranger. Hotel charges, fancy restaurants, weekend trips, all over the past 3 months, thousands of dollars. I felt sick. Not just because of the affair, because she had been building another life while pretending ours still mattered. Then I noticed something else. One charge repeated constantly, a coffee shop downtown, almost every Tuesday. Something about that bothered me. Maybe because routines reveal truth. Affairs survive on patterns, And suddenly I needed answers. Not emotional answers, real ones. The next Tuesday, I left work early. I parked across from the coffee shop and waited. Part of me felt pathetic. Part of me didn't care. At exactly 4:17 p.m., Emily walked inside, alone. My heart started pounding. Then 10 minutes later, a man entered. Tall, dark jacket, confident walk. Marcus. I knew instantly. And when he smiled at her, she smiled back the same way she used to smile at me. That nearly broke me. I should have driven away. I should have protected my peace. Instead, I walked inside. Their faces changed immediately. Emily looked horrified. Marcus looked irritated. Interesting, not guilty. Annoyed. That told me everything about him. "Daniel," Emily whispered. I ignored her. I looked directly at Marcus. "So you're the guy." He stood slowly. "Listen, man." "No, you listen." The entire cafe went silent. "You helped destroy a marriage." Marcus crossed his arms. "She told me you two were basically over." I turned toward Emily, and the panic on her face confirmed it. She lied to him, too. Of course she did. "That true?" I asked. Emily couldn't speak. Marcus stared at her. "Emily?" And suddenly the entire situation shifted. Because for the first time, Marcus realized he hadn't been getting the full truth either. Interesting. Very interesting. People hear the word revenge and imagine screaming, explosions, public humiliation. But real revenge is quieter. It's moving forward while the person who hurt you realizes they lost something real. At least that's what I kept telling myself. The divorce process started 2 weeks later. Fast. Cold. Awkward. Emily didn't fight anything. Not the house, not the finances. Nothing. That almost made it sadder. Like even she knew she had destroyed the marriage beyond repair. But then something unexpected happened. Marcus contacted me directly. At first I ignored the message, then curiosity won. We met at a small diner near the river. He looked different than before. Tired, uneasy, like someone slowly realizing they walked into a burning building. "I know this is weird," he started. "Very." He nodded. "I ended things with Emily. That surprised me." "Why are you telling me?" "Because I think you should know something." Immediately, my stomach tightened. Marcus leaned forward. "She's been lying to both of us." I stared at him carefully. "About what?" "Everything." He pulled out his phone, then showed me screenshots, messages, dates, conversations, and suddenly the situation became even uglier. Emily hadn't just been seeing Marcus. She had been telling him she planned to leave me months earlier. But every time he pushed for commitment, she hesitated. Then came the real shock. "She told me she was pregnant once," Marcus said quietly. "What?" "She lied. There was never a pregnancy." I sat there speechless. That didn't even sound like Emily. Or maybe it did. Maybe I simply never knew how manipulative she could become when trapped between two lives. Marcus rubbed his face. "She kept changing stories. One day you were controlling. Next day you were emotionally distant. Then suddenly she said she still loved you." He shook his head. "I don't think she knows what she wants." "No, she knew exactly what she wanted. She wanted both, security and excitement, comfort and attention, marriage and escape, and eventually she lost everything." "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Nothing." "Then why meet?" Marcus looked genuinely ashamed. "Because I helped hurt somebody who didn't deserve it." That silence afterward felt strange. Two men connected by the same betrayal. Not friends, never friends, but no longer enemies either. Just two people manipulated differently. After that meeting, something inside me finally shifted. The fantasy version of Emily disappeared. Not just the loving wife, even the guilty, confused woman. Because confused people don't build layered lies for months. Selfish people do, and once I accepted that truth, healing finally started. I started going to the gym again, started sleeping normally, started reconnecting with people I had ignored during the emotional chaos. Then one evening, about 4 months after the separation, Emily showed up at the house. Unexpected. Rain pouring outside, mascara running down her face, and the second I saw her, I knew something was wrong. "I lost my apartment," she whispered. I stayed silent. "Marcus left. My freelance contracts are falling apart. Rachel won't let me stay anymore." There it was, consequences. Not dramatic movie consequences, real ones. Loneliness, financial pressure, isolation, the slow collapse that happens after somebody burns every bridge they trusted would remain standing. "Please," she whispered. "I just need help." Old Daniel would have let her inside immediately. Old Daniel would have sacrificed his own peace to rescue her from the mess she created, but heartbreak changes people, sometimes painfully, sometimes necessarily. I looked at her carefully, and for the first time in months, I saw her clearly. Not as my wife, not as my soulmate, just a person, a flawed person facing the consequences of terrible decisions. And suddenly I realized something powerful. I didn't hate her anymore, but I also didn't belong to her anymore. "I can't save you," I said softly. She broke down instantly. "Please don't do this. I'm not doing anything. You already did it." That sentence hung in the air between us. Then I handed her an envelope. She looked confused. "What's this?" "Your share from the house sale." Her hands shook. "You sold the house?" "Yesterday." That hit her harder than anything else, because the house wasn't just property. It was proof the marriage was truly over. No going back, no fixing memories, no rebuilding the exact life we had. Gone. She stared at the envelope, then at me. "When did you stop loving me?" she whispered. And honestly, that question almost destroyed me, because the truth was complicated. I didn't stop loving her the night she disappeared. I stopped loving her slowly. Every lie, every manipulation, every moment she chose selfishness over honesty. Love died piece by piece. "I think," I said quietly, "I stopped loving you when I realized you only came back because your other life wasn't certain." Emily covered her mouth, and deep down, she knew I was right. A year later, my life looked completely different, smaller in some ways, better in others. I moved into a downtown apartment with giant windows and terrible parking. I started hiking again, started reading, started rebuilding pieces of myself I didn't realize I had neglected during the marriage. The strange thing about heartbreak is that eventually, your body gets tired of carrying it, not because the memories disappear, but because survival demands space for new experiences. One Saturday morning, I ran into Emily unexpectedly at a grocery store, and for a second, time froze. She looked older, not physically, emotionally, like life had humbled her hard. She noticed me near the coffee aisle and immediately looked nervous. "Hi," she said quietly. "Hey." Awkward silence, the kind shared between people who once knew every detail about each other. "How have you been?" she asked. "Good." And surprisingly, I meant it. Not fake good, real good. She nodded slowly. "I heard you got promoted." "Yeah, that's great." I noticed there was no ring on her hand. Not that it mattered anymore. Then she looked down. "I'm sorry for everything." A year earlier, that apology would have shattered me. Now, it simply sounded late. "I know," I said. And I did know. I genuinely believe Emily regretted what she did. But regret and repair are not the same thing. Some damage doesn't reverse just because guilt finally arrives. She smiled sadly. "You look happier." That surprised me, because for months after the betrayal, I thought happiness was permanently gone. But healing is strange. It sneaks up on you. One peaceful morning, one quiet laugh, one full night of sleep, one moment where you realize you haven't thought about the pain all day. That's how healing begins. Slowly. Then all at once. Emily shifted awkwardly. I think about that night all the time. I knew exactly which night. Her birthday. The SUV. The suitcase. The ending. I do too, I admitted. She swallowed hard. If I could take it back. You can't. Not cruel, just true. Some choices permanently change relationships. That's reality. And honestly, accepting reality saved me, because denial keeps people trapped. Acceptance lets them move. Eventually, she nodded. Well, I hope you stay happy. You too. Then she walked away. And this time, watching her leave didn't hurt. It simply felt final. I stood there, for a moment staring at shelves full of coffee bags, while memories floated through my head. The good years, the bad, ending, the lies, the lessons. And suddenly I understood something important. Revenge wasn't kicking her out. It wasn't the divorce. It wasn't watching her life collapse. The real revenge was surviving without becoming bitter. Because bitterness would have kept her connected to my future forever. And I refused to give her that power. So instead, I rebuilt quietly, patiently, painfully, and eventually, peacefully. If there's one thing this entire experience taught me, it's this. People rarely destroy relationships in one moment. They destroy them slowly, through avoidance, through dishonesty, through tiny selfish decisions repeated over and over until trust finally collapses. Emily didn't wake up one morning planning to ruin our marriage, and I didn't wake up realizing how disconnected we had become. That's what makes stories like this tragic. Most broken relationships are built from ignored conversations, unspoken resentment, loneliness. Nobody fully explains, but here's the important part. Feeling lonely doesn't justify betrayal. Feeling unseen doesn't excuse dishonesty. Adults communicate. Adults tell the truth. Adults leave honestly if they need to leave, because betrayal doesn't just break hearts, it damages trust in future relationships. For months after Emily left, I questioned everything, my instincts, my judgment, even my worth. That's the hidden damage cheating causes. It makes innocent people feel responsible for somebody else's selfishness. But eventually I learned something healthier. Someone else's betrayal is not proof you were unlovable. Sometimes it's proof they were emotionally immature, and that distinction matters a lot. Today, when people ask if I hate Emily, I honestly don't. Hatred is exhausting, and carrying hate for years only extends the pain. Do I trust her? No. Would I ever go back? Absolutely not. But I also don't spend my life wishing her misery, because peace became more valuable than revenge. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Not every betrayal needs dramatic payback. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is walk away, rebuild your life, and refuse to let the betrayal define you forever. That's what I finally learned. The night my wife disappeared felt like the end of my world. But looking back now, it was actually the beginning of a different one, a quieter one, a wiser one, a life built on truth instead of illusion. And honestly, that life turned out better than I expected. So if somebody listening right now is going through betrayal, hear me carefully. You do not need to destroy yourself trying to save people who already destroyed your trust. Love should bring peace, not constant suspicion, not confusion, not emotional survival mode. And if somebody truly values you, they won't risk losing you for temporary excitement. That's the truth I learned too late. But at least I learned it eventually. And maybe that's enough.